wanted to marry me. He wanted to get a divorce from his wife.
No,
he wanted
Your
to be
Honor.
with me.
No, Your Honor.
A man denies being the father.
Mr. Wiggins, you are here in court to prove that you are not the father of Miss Davis's child, Aubree Wiggins, and say today's results will change your life. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
A woman insists he is. What happens when the truth is revealed?
Miss Davis, you claim that Mr. Wiggins knows he's the father of your child and is trying to deny her because he already has 3 children and doesn't want to step up and be a father. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Secrets, lies, and a shocking twist no one saw coming. Stick around to find out who's lying and what's at stake for everyone involved. In a courtroom where truth had no place and love was just a word, 2 lives stood tangled in lies. A child's future hung in the balance, while the identity of her real father remained a chilling mystery. Emotions ran high, tears fell freely, and Judge Lake's expressions said more than words ever could. But just when you think you've heard it all, the biggest twist drops, the most shocking part. Despite everything, they were together again just last night. This is the case, Wiggins vs. Davis. Eugene Wiggins has stepped into the courtroom with a firm declaration. He is not the biological father of little Aubree. He claims he's here to clear his name, to escape the shadows of a responsibility he insists was never his to bear. Sitting across from him is Ms. Shantrell Davis, a woman unwavering in her claim that Eugene knows he's the father. According to her, this is not a case of mistaken identity. It's a case of denial, abandonment, and a man trying to run from his own blood. As the camera pans to Eugene's tense expression and Miss Davis's determined gaze, we begin to see just how personal and painful this battle really is. For Miss Davis, this isn't just about proving a point. It's about seeking justice for her daughter. She says Eugene was never just a fleeting presence. He was involved, around, and very much aware of what he was walking away from. Her voice doesn't tremble, because this fight has been going on long before the courtroom ever got involved. Meanwhile, Eugene stands tall but reserved. His body language screams discomfort, but his words remain measured. He denies any involvement, insists he was misled, and paints a different picture entirely. A picture where he is the victim of lies, manipulation, and misplaced blame. And now, after months of silence and tension, both parties have brought their truths into a courtroom that only deals in facts. But as the case unfolds, it's clear this is more than just a simple paternity dispute. It's a web of accusations, emotional scars, and conflicting stories that don't quite add up. With a child's future hanging in the balance and 2 adults pointing fingers, the courtroom braces itself for a truth that may hurt more than any lie ever could. Eugene Wiggins finally admitted it. The weight of his confession hung in the air, thick with tension. He was separated from his wife at the time, emotionally detached, searching for something to fill the void. And that's when he met Shantrell Davis. At first, it was just a chance encounter, a fleeting moment in time that seemed insignificant. But as he recalls it, there was something about her, a magnetic pull that drew him in. He saw her standing there in tight pants, and something clicked. He didn't beat around the bush when explaining it. No romantic words, no flowery emotions, just raw truth. "I just wanted one thing," Eugene confessed, his voice steady, almost mechanical. "I just wanted sex." There was no sugarcoating it, no pretenses. To Eugene, it was as simple as that, a momentary need, a brief escape from the chaos of his life. It wasn't love, it wasn't a deep connection. It was nothing more than a physical desire, a fleeting indulgence in something that promised relief without complications. As Eugene spoke those words, the courtroom fell into stunned silence. The kind of silence that makes you hold your breath, unsure of how to react. And then came the reactions, loud, sharp, and unmistakable. The audience gasped, murmurs rippled through the room. Some whispered, others shook their heads. And in That moment, it became clear just how deep this story was cutting. People weren't just judging the affair. They were judging Eugene's motives, his honesty, and his lack of remorse. The judge's face was unreadable, but the spectators weren't holding back. "Oh!" someone in the crowd gasped, the word hanging in the air like a punch that landed right where it hurt. It wasn't just the act itself, it was the cold, unapologetic way Eugene described it. He didn't seem remorseful, not in the least. And that hit hard. For many, it wasn't just a matter of an affair, it was a stark revelation of Eugene's character. As Eugene's words echoed through the courtroom, the true impact of his affair with Shantrell Davis was felt by everyone in the room. It was clear that the consequences were far more significant than just the affair itself. This wasn't a simple mistake or a one-time lapse in judgment. It was a betrayal of something far more important: trust, responsibility, and the very concept of commitment. And in this case, those consequences would ripple out to affect the lives of everyone involved, most notably little Aubree. Shantrell Davis insisted, loudly, passionately, that for over 2 years, she and Eugene had been in a serious relationship. She claimed that their connection went beyond the physical. She talked about long nights, deep conversations, and a bond that she believed to be real. In her eyes, it wasn't just an affair, it was love. A love that had grown over time, built on mutual understanding, or at least, that's what she thought. Shantrell was convinced that they had shared something meaningful, something more than just fleeting moments of pleasure. But Eugene, he had a very different perspective on things. His voice was matter-of-fact, almost emotionless, as he shot down Shantrell's narrative. "I was just lying," Eugene admitted bluntly. "I told her what she wanted to hear just to get what I needed." His words sliced through the room like a knife, cold and calculating. To Eugene, it was all a game, a way to get the attention and physical satisfaction he craved. What Shantrell saw as a genuine relationship, Eugene saw as nothing more than a series of lies to cover up his true intentions. He was never emotionally invested. To him, it wasn't about connection or love. It was about a temporary fix for his own desires, a momentary escape from his own emotional turmoil. As Eugene's confession hung in the air, the truth of the situation seemed to sink in. It wasn't just a one-sided view. It was a stark contrast between two people who had different understandings of what they had been involved in. Shantrell believed she was in a meaningful relationship, while Eugene only saw it as a means to an end. The deception was real, and in that moment it became clear that their definitions of love, commitment, and respect were worlds apart. And that's when the courtroom tension reached its peak. The truth had been laid bare for everyone to see, and the moment couldn't be ignored. A sound effect, sharp, unmistakable, cut through the heavy silence. "Liar detected." The room seemed to freeze, and every eye turned to Eugene. It was as if the universe itself had confirmed what everyone was already thinking. Eugene's lies weren't just words. They were a breach of trust, a betrayal not just of Shantrell, but of any genuine connection they might have had. The audience couldn't hide their disbelief, murmuring amongst themselves. How could Eugene have been so cold? How could he have deceived someone who genuinely believed in their relationship? The weight of his admission was heavier than the affair itself. It wasn't just about cheating, it was about the raw honesty, or rather the lack of it, that hung between them. And as the tension in the room mounted, the truth began to take shape. This wasn't love. It was just a game, and Eugene had played it well. The moment Shantrell revealed she was pregnant, the courtroom seemed to pause. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. There was no joy, no celebration in her announcement. Instead, there was an icy tension. Shantrell's eyes, filled with hope, searched Eugene's face, looking for a sign, any sign, that he would share in her excitement. But Eugene's reaction was nothing like what she expected. His face twisted into a mask of doubt, his eyes narrowing as if he couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. "I have my doubts," he muttered, almost as if the idea of a child being his was something he couldn't fathom. His response was not just a rejection of the idea, it was a complete shutdown of the future she envisioned. Shantrell, standing there, pregnant and vulnerable, had hoped for a different reaction. She was expecting him to be supportive, maybe even elated, but instead, Eugene's doubt hung heavily in the air. His words were laced with skepticism, as if questioning her credibility or accusing her of fabricating the truth. His indifference stung like a slap in the face, leaving Shantrell to question everything she thought they shared. The dramatic reveal didn't stop there. Eugene's wife, who had been in the dark about his affair with Shantrell, was also pregnant, just 1 month apart. Imagine the shock, the devastation, as she learned of Shantrell's pregnancy, realizing that her own husband had not only been unfaithful, but had caused a double betrayal. The chaos was almost unimaginable. Eugene was stuck in the middle, his two worlds colliding. His wife, devastated by the affair, now faced the harsh reality of raising a child with a man who had betrayed her trust. The emotional damage was irreversible, and for Eugene, the entire situation became a nightmare of his own making. The betrayal was no longer just a personal issue between him and Shantrell. It was a ticking time bomb that had now exploded, affecting everyone around him. His reaction, so full of doubt, wasn't just a refusal to take responsibility. It was a reflection of his inability to confront the reality of the consequences his actions had brought. As the flashback reenactment played out on the screen, viewers saw Eugene's face, caught between shock and guilt, as the truth of his actions hit him hard. His wife, heartbroken and devastated, stood beside him, unable to comprehend how her marriage had come to this. And the babies, born just a month apart, their futures intertwined in ways none of them could have ever anticipated. In that moment, Eugene's world was crumbling, and the truth was undeniable. His actions had set off a chain of events that would change the lives of everyone involved forever. The courtroom was filled with tension as the birth certificate controversy unfolded. It was a twist no one saw coming, yet it was a vital piece of the puzzle that could shift the entire case in an unexpected direction. Shantrell's lawyer pointed to the document, the birth certificate that had Eugene's name on it, yet the date of birth was all wrong. The discrepancy was glaring, like a glaring mistake that couldn't be easily explained away. As the birth certificate was displayed in front of everyone, the room fell silent. The mistake was too big to ignore. Eugene's name was clearly listed as the father, but the date of birth didn't match the reality of the situation. In a case that already reeked of lies and deception, this added fuel to the fire. It made everyone question, was this all a mistake, or was Eugene intentionally trying to cover up the truth? Eugene, sitting there on the witness stand, attempted to explain himself. "I was asked for the details over the phone," he said, his voice shaky. "I never signed anything." His words echoed with a sense of uncertainty, like someone trying to distance himself from a situation he no longer had control over. But the more Eugene spoke, the less convincing he seemed. It was as if he was scrambling for any excuse to avoid responsibility, to shift the blame elsewhere. His story didn't add up. If he was truly the father, how could he forget such a simple detail like the date of birth? It was almost as if he was trying to avoid the reality of the situation. Judge Lake, sitting at the bench with a stern look, couldn't hide his disbelief. "You don't forget your birthday," he exclaimed, his voice rising with the intensity of the moment. The truth was undeniable. How could someone forget the very day they were born? How could Eugene possibly claim to have no recollection of such a significant detail? The courtroom felt the weight of the judge's words. It was as if everything that had been said up until that point was irrelevant. This one small detail, the wrong date of birth, could potentially unravel Eugene's entire defense. It was an undeniable fact that no amount of excuses or explanations could cover up. The dramatic pause that followed the judge's statement seemed to stretch on forever. Everyone in the room, from the lawyers to the jury, was waiting for Eugene's next move. Would he continue to deny responsibility, or would he finally admit to what everyone seemed to already know? The clock was ticking, and Eugene's fate hung in the balance. In that moment, the truth seemed inevitable. The courtroom was electric with anticipation, each moment pushing the tension higher, and nothing could prepare anyone for the shocking twist that was about to unfold. Judge Lake, calm but with an edge of disbelief, turned to the defendants with a single, straightforward question that hung in the air like a thunderstorm ready to erupt. "Are you still involved with each other?" His voice carried authority, and the room fell silent, as if everyone could sense that the truth was about to come to light. Eugene responded quickly, almost too quickly, without hesitation. "No," he said firmly, his face cold and devoid of emotion. He looked almost too confident in his denial, as though he believed his words could erase the truth that lay beneath them. His denial was quick and sharp, but something about it felt rehearsed, as if he were trying to convince not only the court but himself as well. The audience watched with bated breath, waiting for Shantrell's response, knowing that her answer might be the key to everything. And then it came. Shantrell, looking him dead in the eyes, broke the silence with a simple but powerful statement. "Last night." Her words sent shockwaves through the room. It was as if a bomb had gone off. The audience gasped in unison, their shock palpable in the air. Even the judge seemed taken aback, his eyes widening as he processed what she had just revealed. The courtroom, once filled with a steady hum of murmurs, was now deafeningly quiet. The only sound, the quick, shallow breaths of those trying to process the unexpected turn of events. Narrator's voice, cool and suspenseful, cut through the tense silence. Just one night ago, they were still intimate with each other, without protection. The implications of her words were clear, and the shock of it rippled through the courtroom like a wave crashing on the shore. The tension was thick. How could this be? Just hours before this trial, these two were involved in a moment that could now change everything. The air in the courtroom felt thick, charged with the electricity of this confession. It was a twist no one could have anticipated. The revelation that just the night before, Eugene and Shantrell had been together in such an intimate way, without any precautions, challenged everything they had said up until that moment. How could Eugene deny involvement when his actions contradicted his words? How could Shantrell claim that Eugene was absent from Aubree's life when clearly they were still involved in such a personal way? This moment shattered the narrative they had tried so carefully to build. The judge, momentarily stunned by the revelation, seemed to weigh his next words carefully. His expression was one of disbelief, and the room was so quiet that you could hear the faint rustling of papers as the court stenographer typed. The courtroom was suspended in time as the full weight of Shantrell's words settled over everyone present. The entire case, which had seemed like it was drawing to a close, now appeared to be teetering on the edge of something far more complicated. Eugene's previous denials, his attempts to shift blame, were now thrown into question by this one moment. Was this just a mistake? Or was there something more sinister at play? Could it be that the truth, the real truth, was far more entangled than anyone had thought? The room was left hanging on this single, shocking revelation. And now the true test was about to begin. How would Eugene and Shantrell respond? Would the judge be able to unravel this web of lies, or was this just the beginning of an even deeper mystery? The courtroom was on edge, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. The air was heavy with anticipation, as every eye in the room was fixed on Judge Lake. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the envelope that contained the DNA results, the answer that everyone had been waiting for, the truth that could change everything. The dramatic silence was broken only by the soft rustling of the paper as Judge Lake slowly opened the envelope. The sound echoed through the room like a ticking clock, each second making the suspense unbearable. His expression was unreadable, but you could see the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He glanced over the paper, his eyes scanning the results before lifting his gaze to the room. The narrator's voice, calm yet filled with suspense, filled the air. Is Eugene really Aubree's father? Or has everything been a lie? The words hung in the air like a challenge, daring the audience to believe what was about to unfold. Every person in the room seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the verdict that could either confirm Eugene's paternity or completely shatter the foundation of this case. The judge paused, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the paper once more. The room was frozen in time. No one moved. No one breathed. This was the moment of truth. Judge Lake took a deep breath, holding the DNA results up for everyone to see. The room was silent, the weight of the moment hanging in the air. The DNA results are clear, he announced, his voice low and measured. Eugene, you are not the father of Aubree. The room erupted in a mix of gasps and whispers, the shock rippling through the audience. Shantrell's face contorted with disbelief, while Eugene stood frozen, a mix of relief and guilt in his eyes. Judge Lake turned to them, his tone firm yet compassionate. You both need to move forward. This child deserves the truth and the responsibility of parenthood.